So it's no major difference that exists between these two. And the growth rate is extremely little. As much as the telecom ARPU is controlled and regulated by the government, even the pay TV ARPUs are regulated by the government itself through what is called as NTOs. If you look at home broadband connectivity on the other side, it's around close to 28 million connected or wireless connection entering into homes and some bit of it in offices section. So on an average, over the pandemic time, it touched around 20 and has been niggling around close to 30s in the last 2 years. So no major growth on that front from a subscription perspective. If you look at the overall smart TV connected homes, okay, it's still at its infancy. There are different versions of connected TV. One is smart TV standalone connected to wireless, then smart TV connected to Fire Sticks, smart TVs connected to hybrid boxes. So different forms of connected television comes into play. And that's around between 15 to 20 million approximately. And pay OTT platforms, if you look at the total pay OTT platforms, leaving out the AWOD section, that's around close to 45 million homes. So in all these aspects, the subscription revenue is subdued at this particular moment of time. And even if it continues to grow, it's not going to grow with a sudden spurge, actually. So the next comes in is advertising revenues, actually. So let's look at what kind of potential does advertising revenue have. You're close to 900 million individuals on television as of now, okay, through 200 million TV homes. That means around close to 45 million free homes that are subscribing to free platforms already. Added incentive as government is bringing new technology in on the free platform. Yesterday, the Minister of I&B was talking about inserting a tuner into the TV sets that could automatically connect to the satellite transmissions directly without having to have a set-top box at all. So therefore, it's going to enlarge more amount of homes and individuals watching linear television on the free-to-air platform. If you look at increasing internet usage across individuals, it has already touched 650 million of the total 750 odd million connected wireless mobile devices, actually. Okay. If you look at the smartphone connectivity, okay, it's already touched 55% penetration, and more feature phones are becoming more and more smartphones. And there's a growing appetite to consuming content, which has actually increased post-pandemic when you compare to pre-pandemic by 2.5 times, actually. So consumption time of content has jumped up by 2.5 times. In all these things, what is happening to an average consumer? Okay. If you look at the total time of 24 hours in an average individual's life, you see 38% of that going to sleep, actually. You have 20% of it going to mobile. And if you look at the other media connecting to the consumers, that's almost around close to 23%. So that consists of TV, radio, print, and out of home in nature. So therefore, when you look at in conjunction with mobile, there are around close to 1/4 of the time is being spent with devices that is actually connected to media that gives you an opportunity to advertising or connect with the consumers on an advertising level. Today, if you look at it, advertising is around 140 minutes of content that is consumed of advertising by an average consumer. And as you go day in, day out, you see clutter of advertising increasing. Today, on an average basis, 840 ads are being consumed by an average individual during the course of the day. So where you think is expansion possible in this arena for growing advertising revenues? Today, when we look at advertising revenues, it stands around 85,000 crores. Okay. There are two different estimates out saying digital has crossed TV, some says TV has crossed, still maintaining the leadership position. But on an overall level, digital and TV is almost around close to 85% of advertising. Okay. In this scenario, when we look at further growth for AdX, the growth is basically going to come if we start dissecting the data of advertising in a big way. When we look at total advertising happening in this particular country in the year 2022, 53% of ad spends are coming in from 0.02 advertisers. Okay. That means the fact that just a 0.02% of the advertisers are contributing to today to 53% of the advertising revenues of 85,000 crores actually. There's a 36% money coming in from one additional 1% of advertisers. And if you look to the extreme right, you're seeing 99% of advertisers contributing to just 11% of AdX. Okay. Now, who are these 99% whom we are talking about? These are the SME sectors, actually. Okay. India is one of the world's largest SME sector market. Okay. 30% of India's GDP is contributed by this sector. For a GDP of 270 trillion, the growth rate is around 7% on year-to-year basis. SME is growing at around the same rate, with almost around contributing to 81 trillion rupees, actually. If you look at number of SMEs in the world, there are around 30 crore SMEs. India's share is around 20%, the largest in the world, which is 6.3 crore. And out of this 6.3 crores, just 2.5% of SMEs are actually advertising today, actually. There's a 97% of those advertisers or SME segment is not yet touched advertising in any fashion, okay, whether it's print, digital, TV, radio, or out of home in nature. That's a segment which is going to keep exploding and keep growing the market. If you divide them into urban and rural markets, 52% of them are on the rural markets. Okay? And there are around 48% in urban. So it's an equal divide between urban and rural. And if you look at the factors that are fueling the growth of the SMEs in India, advertising is one of the factors that's growing, building up the brands for them. So in 2022, while MNC brands had a decline of 11% in terms of AdX, these guys were fueling advertising by 16% growth rate, actually. So that's the segment which is actually coming in a big way and utilizing e-com platforms to also distribute the products on a national level basis. If you look at their contribution over a period of time onto AdX, which is just 2.5% of the total SME sector today advertising, it's around 60% actually. So out of 85,000 crores, around 50,000 crores are being put by SMEs upfront for advertising in different ways. If you look at the growth rate year on year for 22 versus 19, versus 22 versus 20, and 22 versus 21, each of the year, the growth rate is phenomenal. Okay? In 2022 versus 19, you're seeing a 52% growth. That is post-pandemic versus pre-pandemic. If you look at it only over last year, there's an 89% growth rate actually with this segment on advertising spends. Who are these guys? Who are these SME guys who are spending so much slowly on advertising? Okay. These are the categories actually. If you look at, on the left you see the print, middle you see the radio, and on the right you see the television. Okay. And digital is also similar in terms of categories actually. It's the retail outlets, jewelers, properties, real estate, education outlets, or coaching classes. All of them are the big categories that are actually putting money upfront into advertising. If you look at some of the big top 5 sectors, they are actually education, fashion, food, home decor, and medical and health dominates this particular category in a big way. If you look at the span across TV, print, radio, and digital between pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, you're seeing the fact that there are around 57 categories that have actually been advertising from this sector in low-end media outlets that are cheaper in nature but enable them to reach their customers very effectively per se. So in other words, television is becoming more regional, more hyperlocal. Print is becoming more hyperlocal editions. Radio is becoming more local radio FM stations, and digital is obviously geotagging as well as in terms of personalization of messages that are happening. Okay. So 4 big takeouts largely. 1, ad spends of these brands, the SME brands, grew by almost 89% in 2022 versus 2021. 2, regional television saw the highest airtime consumption vis-a-vis national television. 3, hyperlocal advertisers booming up advertising in radio FM stations and in regional local stations as well as digital platforms. And 4, cable television, slowly advertising is picking up to grow in an enormous way. Now look at one of the biggest advertisers in the country, which is Unilever, which is among the top 3 advertisers in the country from an ad spends perspective. What's happening with them? In 2009, 2010, a decade back, when I was looking at the data, it showed 80% of the advertising on national television actually. Today when I look at that national has been broken down to regional. Out of around close to 187 brands that they own, again, they're fighting 2,885 brands as competitors actually. Okay. So regional competitors are eating into their businesses continuously, pushing them to go from national to regional. Okay. Bulk of the products now are regional media dominated rather than actually national media domination. And each of those platforms are now giving them the yield for what they're looking for at regional pocket levels. Now, even big advertisers like Unilever are moving on to regional markets and using that as a platform for communication into future. This will continue to grow even more. So if you look at the future of AdX growth, therefore coming in from, and we break it down to the lowermost levels, this is how things are changing actually. Okay. Consumers is becoming more and more oriented towards what is local news, what is local events, local festivals, talent contests at the local level, and movies and music being played out at a local level. Okay. So the local interest on content has dramatically increased, obviously supported by language in which they can communicate and understand. At the same time, platforms are emerging slowly to provide that particular content constantly in nature. Okay. Digital social platforms has been one of the strongest one. But besides that, there's also the hyperlocal print editions that have started coming in. There are close to around 3,000 odd print hyperlocal edition, which are just one-sheeters providing information on one local area itself. There are 800 plus radio stations actually, or 300 plus radio stations actually, talking to local markets actually. Okay. And local cable channels, which is almost around close to 10,000 of them, providing local news and local information and local entertainment content in each one. Now, if you look at each of those platforms and aggregate it together and look at the potential ad revenues that is going to come from these SME sectors, looking at these pockets of markets for advertising and communication actually. And if they become more and more professional with data and marketing in nature, the growth that is expected from advertising is almost close to around 65,000 crores actually. Okay. Almost double what we are today in terms of advertising. Step 1 obviously is to monitor the advertising that is happening in these markets. Okay. Moving from, today we monitor around 900 odd publications. We are moving into another 300 odd hyperlocal newspaper monitoring of advertising that's happening. We monitor 600 plus channels now. We're moving on to monitoring 100 plus hyperlocal cable channels actually. Okay. 990 radio channels, we're expanding to 200 plus more. While web publishers, already 3,000 web publishers that we monitor for advertising, we're moving into looking at social platforms for tracking advertising on that. The second one is basically data about what is the content that's getting consumed on those platforms and which is the audience consuming at what time, etc. Okay. With hybrid boxes slowly entering into the homes, okay, streaming content and linear content is getting merged together into those platforms. And audience is moving from linear to streaming as well as streaming to linear at their own convenience in nature, based on the content that they want to consume. If that trend continues, actually, okay, and that is profiled by geography, demographics, and ownership patterns of consumer durables, integrated with program logs and ad logs, etc., what you get is granular data, actually. Okay. A million homes data gives you amplified, granular data about what is getting consumed or how is content getting consumed in the homes, simultaneously with what other products are getting consumed in the homes. That's the direction that the industry is moving on to. And as that happens, I don't see any reason why we can't envisage a growth of advertising from an 85,000 crores today to almost 150,000 crores of advertising spends in a couple of years' time, actually. That's what I wanted to communicate. Thank you very much for your time.